Alright guys, so here's the lesson on factoring. This is 2.2, days 3 and 4. The top part you're going to have to copy from online. This part is just the factoring part at the bottom of your notes page. So if you missed the review section, you're going to have to do that on your own. So go ahead and find the section that says factoring. It's about halfway down on your notes page. And fill in these words. Factoring is when you're going from standard form, which is this. Oops, that should say ax squared plus bx plus c. That's from our assignment the other day. To intercept form, which is when it's x plus something times x plus something else equals 0. Now these are the same thing. They're interchangeable. They're just different forms of the same equation. So what we're going to be doing is basically undoing distribution or FOIL or box method. We're undoing that. So you can think about it that way too. Feel free to pause here if you need to. You're also going to fill in these words. Right? If C is positive, you're going to add two numbers to equal B. And if C is negative, you're going to try and subtract. And when I say C and B, I'm talking about the standard equation again. I'm talking about ax squared plus bx plus c. So let's say you had a problem that said 2x squared plus 9x minus 7. Okay, well A would be 2, B would be positive 9, and C would be negative 7. You're just looking at what order they're going in. A is always the thing attached to x squared, B is always the one attached to x, and C is the constant. It's the number by itself. There's nothing attached to that one. So when I'm talking about A, B, and C, make sure you understand that that's what I'm referring to. Alright, and then our actual steps for factoring. Check for your GCF first. That stands for greatest common factor. Double bubble is a fun way to remember that you have to do parentheses. And you always put whatever variable you're using in the front. And it should equal 0. So double bubble just means set up those parentheses ahead of time. Step 3 is factor t on c. Again, I'm talking about ax squared plus bx plus c. So whatever that last number is, that's c. Okay? This should say add slash subtract. I didn't change that on my notes. So you're trying to determine which factors add or subtract to b, and then you're writing them in intercept form and checking by distributing afterwards. Again, feel free to pause right here if you need to do some note taking. You should get all those steps written down, or go back if you need to hear me explain it again. I'm going to start going through the example. Step number 1, check for GCF. Okay, that means I got to check all of my numbers. Well, there's really a 1 right there. So 1, 6, and 8. Well, the only thing I can divide 1, 6, and 8 by are 1. But I don't want to take 1 out. That doesn't help me at all. So I'm not going to take out a GCF. There is nothing I can take out. Second step, set up my bubbles, or my parentheses. And since it's x, it's going to be x in the front, because it's x squared. Whatever variable you're using, you just put that in the front. So that's done. Alright, factor t on c. Well, c is the number by itself, so 8 is my c. This is b, this is a. And I'm going to make a factor t. Alright, well, my factors of 8, 1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 doesn't work, and then I'm back at 4 again. So those are my only factors for 8. So step 3 is done. Step 4, I need to kind of go back to this tip that we had. It says if C is positive, the factor should add to equal B. If C is negative, then you should subtract. Well, my 8 is positive. That means I'm going to have to add two numbers to get 6. Well, 1 plus 8 is 9, so that doesn't work. 2 plus 4 is 6. Those are my numbers then. Okay? I picked the factors that add to get my b value. So 2 and 4 are going to go here. I can't use 1 and 8. Last step is I got to figure out what signs go in these blanks. Well, I know they have to multiply to be positive 8. The only things that multiply to be a positive are positive times positive or negative times negative. Those are my only options. So I can either have positive 2 and positive 4 trying to add to get to 6, or negative 2 and negative 4. Well, which one adds to positive 6? Positive 2 and positive 4 make positive 6. Negative 2 and negative 4 make negative 6. So this one is the one I want. I want both of them to be positive so that when I distribute, it's going to end up equaling what I started with. So that is step 5. That's my answer. Now step 6 I'm going to use to check my answer. Okay, distributing means doing this, doing your arches. If you want to do box method, you can do that as well. I'm just doing this way to get through a little bit faster. X times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, all I'm doing is distributing to check and make sure that I get this guy, the thing I started with. If I put my two like terms together, I get 6x plus 8. Check and make sure, does it look like my original? It does. So my answer was correct. It's x plus 2 times x plus 4. That's how you check and make sure if your answer is right or not. Feel free to pause and go backwards if you need to, or to hear that example again. I'm going to move on to the next one. Again, first step, check for GCF. There's a 1 in front of that. Well, 1, 4, and 32, the biggest thing they can divide by is 1, so no GCF. Second step, double bubble. Put your parentheses where they belong. Since it's an m squared, I'm going to put m's in there this time. Third step, factor t on c. 32 is my c this time. 1 times 32. 2 times 16, 3 doesn't work, 4 times 8 works, 5 doesn't work, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work, 8 works, but I already wrote that down, so I'm done. Okay, so all I'm doing is going through my steps here. Just going through the steps. Alright, now I gotta look and see if I'm gonna add or subtract. My 32 is negative, so I'm going to subtract 2 numbers to get 4. 32 minus 1 is 31. That doesn't work. 16 minus 2 is 14. That doesn't work. 8 minus 4 is 4. That works. Okay, now I got to figure out what my signs are. I know it's 8 and 4. I'm trying to multiply to get a negative 32. Well, the only way to get a negative is to have a positive times a negative or a negative times a positive. I have to have one of each sign. So I can't make them both positive. I can't make them both negative. I gotta have one of each. Well, that means my only options are positive 8 minus 4 or negative 8 plus 4. That's the only way that I get that. Okay, computer's kind of lagging, that's why it's not showing up. There we go. Alright, well, positive 8 minus 4 is positive 4. Negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. What am I trying to get? I'm trying to get negative 4, so this is my answer. Another way you can kind of think of it to shortcut is if you're trying to end up with a negative number, like we were here, you have to start with more negatives. 8 is the bigger number, that means I have to have more negatives than positives. You can check by distributing, but it's going to end up equaling the same thing. You're going to get your original answer, and this is the answer to my problem. Alright, step number 3, I'm just going to go through this one so I can save some time. GCF, there's a 1 right here, can't divide them by anything, so I'm not going to take out a GCF. Set up my parentheses, set it equal to 0. Put my y's in front. Start working on my factor t. There's a lot of them this time. 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, 6 times 6. Feel free to pause when you need to. All right, check my sign in front. It's a negative, so I'm going to be trying to subtract to get 13. It's going to have to subtract. 36 minus 1 doesn't work. 18 minus 2 doesn't work. 12 minus 3 doesn't work. 9 minus 4 doesn't work. 6 minus 6 doesn't work. None of my options work, which means this is not factorable. Can't do it. Some of you might be thinking, hey, 9 plus 4 works, but I can't do 9 plus 4. Look at your sign. If it's negative, you have to subtract to get your middle number. Can't do that with those, so it's not factorable. All right, example number 4. Again, check for a GCF, and actually this time we've got a GCF there. 2, 18, and 28 can all be divided by 2. Okay, we'll take a 2 out of everything. Check and see, can I divide x out of everything? No, there's no x on the 28, so I can't do that. So just a 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1x squared. Negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9x. And positive 28 divided by 2 is positive 14. Set it equal to 0. All right, well now we're ready to start doing the rest of our steps. Step 2 said to do double bubble. Now I can't just ignore this 2 on the outside. I still got to include him. Let's move it down a little bit. But I'm going to set up my double bubbles like normal. But I'm going to be doing it based on this one now. You're not using this guy anymore. You're done with that. You already took out the 2 for a reason. Step 3, factor t on c. Well, c is 14. It's not 28. 1 times 14. 2 times 7. Nothing else works. Those are my only options. Check your sign. It's a positive. So we're trying to add to get the number 9. Well, 1 plus 14 doesn't work. That equals 15. 2 plus 7 works, though. That equals 9. So put your x's where they belong. Put your 2 and your 7 where they belong. Now you're working on your signs. I know I got to get a positive 14. My only options are positive times positive or negative times negative to get a positive. All right, well, positive 2 and positive 7 equal positive 9. Well, I'm trying to get a negative 9. Negative 2 minus 7, well, that gets me negative 9. So that means both of these signs have to be negative. Awesome. Problem done. Again, if you wanted to check, you could FOIL it out and then multiply everything by 2. You should get back to your original answer. Alright, smaller problem, still the same process. Check for a GCF. Can I divide them both by something? Yes, I can. 6 and 42 can both be divided by 6. Divide them both by 6. You get x squared plus 7 equals 0. Okay, now some of you might be freaking out and thinking you can't do anything with this. Check and make sure. If there's nothing in the middle, that's really a 0x. That's how they got rid of it, is because 0 times anything makes it go away.
What is it last year?
All right, well, check your factors real quick. Let's see if this is going to work. All I've got is 1 times 7, and it would have to add to equal 0. Well, that doesn't really make any sense. I can't do anything with that, so that one's done. We just stop right here. Okay, and that's the last. Yep, I think there's another one. The last one is actually x squared minus 16 equals 0. If you set it up like x squared plus 0x minus 16, you're going to be able to factor it like normal. Okay, you got 1, 16, 4, and 4. If you have a positive and a negative 4, you'll be able to make it work as x minus 4